Welcome to the Wealthies Circle Forums, where we will hear from finalists who are paving the way in the wealth management industry. The industry does have a problem. It's called succession. A growing number of advisors are nearing retirement, but they do not have plans for an orderly transition of their business. I'm Patrice Sikora, and with me are three industry leaders to discuss trends and concerns facing the wealth management space, including record levels of mergers and acquisitions. But first, we're going to talk succession with Todd Fulks, Senior Vice President, Succession and Acquisition at Advisor Group, Hilary Pluemer, Managing Director of Advisor Services at Prospera, and Rob Goff, Vice President of Succession and Acquisition Consulting at Raymond James. All right, Todd, you were first on the list. You're going to get the first question. Succession, is it a concern right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it is. I think that, we all know the demographics in our industry. That's nothing new. We also see a number of different accelerants over the past 3 to 5 years. You have the DOL fiduciary rule that came and went and then came back again. You've got Regulation BI that came and stayed. You've got cybersecurity measures that financial professionals have to take. And then, as I mentioned, you have DOL coming back in a different format, so to speak. But then you also have the DOL coming and recently saying they want to make a push, or it wants to make a push for changing the characterization possibly of independent contractors in the IBD space from independent contractors to employees, which really causes a problem with a lot of the deal structuring that we see with succession plans. So I do think that there is an issue, and I think that you've got a great panel here today that it's our job to help solve for this problem. And we also know that you see that all of the headlines through really information over the past few years. It seems consistent that about 40% of financial professionals plan to leave the industry in the next 10 years. So I think it's really incumbent upon the folks who you have on the phone to really help those folks, do what they do for their own clients and help them retire on their own terms.
Well, Hilary, let me ask you this. Why are people not planning? Do they think they're going to work forever?
Doctors also make the worst patients. I think planners get so wrapped up in working with their clients and helping their clients, and they don't stop to think about what they want. And I think some of it, the challenge is that they're overwhelmed. They don't know exactly what they want. They want to find that ideal person, and they don't know how to find the person. There's such a challenge because you think, well, I want them to be just like me. Do I want them to compliment me? It's really hard to find someone to come in and be a succession plan. We also have so few people coming into the industry. So there's just not a wide variety and a good base of junior advisors and younger advisors to come in and develop a succession plan with. So I think when they get overwhelmed, they just kick it down the road and don't give it much thought.
And Rob, do you think maybe they don't know how to plan for succession?
I think that's part of it. I think hopefully the support they're getting from their current firms, whether on the employee side or independent side, that they're getting plenty of education. But it's also I think Hilary really said it well, that it's easy to put off and easy to not think about whether it's their own retirement or their sort of own mortality. It's easy to put off. And I think that's what we're seeing them just sort of put it aside, and I'll get to it. They're focused on their clients and their clients' retirement and their clients' succession, and not so much on their own. And I do agree with Hilary as well in terms of the number of advisors coming into the industry has really been down over the last 5-10 years. And that's going to create a lot of opportunities out there for those looking to, as the advisors who are aging do decide to leave the industry. Unfortunately, it's one way or the other, they will be leaving, but hopefully it's on their own terms, like Todd said, as opposed to health and wellness forcing them out earlier than they anticipate.
Is there some way the industry can encourage them to at least plan, if not actually take that step and retire?
I think so. This is Todd. And I think that, that's the reason that Rob and Hilary and I are in the positions that we have. this is something that I've dedicated my career to. I have a passion for this. And, going back to both Rob and Hilary's comments, it's kind of like the old adage, the cobbler's children have no shoes. A lot of financial professionals they're spending their time working in their business and working for their clients, which is something they definitely should do. But they don't spend time, at least a little bit of time, working on their business and planning for ultimately their own retirement.
Which, when you come right back to it, is also servicing their clients and their employees.
100%.
Really. And I know, Patrice, we have helped advisors with succession plans, from the beginning of the firm times, but just recently have we really formulated that into an actual process and gone out and been more proactive with it. In the past, it's really just been a reactive service that we've offered. Now we've put together guidebooks and processes and, sample contracts and kind of that whole how-to that you were talking about at the beginning. They don't know how to, they don't even know where to start. So we have, a consultant internally who will take them all the way through that process. At the same time, we're building up the potential buyer type side of it, those who would be interested in becoming the succession plan and joining in with those advisors who want to go out. So we're just really at this point trying to amp up the education and the resources for our advisors.
What's been the response to that, Hilary?
Oh, overwhelming. I think both Todd and Rob have said it well, and that these advisors a lot of times aren't thinking about themselves. I mean, I will talk to an advisor who, is advanced in age and they're talking about, having to care for their spouse or something, but they can't even realize that they're that same age. It seems so obvious to the rest of us that they need to at least start a plan. But our advisors have been very willing to talk about it. Not as much, not everyone is willing to do something about it. I have some advisors who are willing to talk about a 5 to 8 year plan, which I love because you can get in front of it. You can really help them and we can really do it right. And then we get calls from somebody saying, well, I'd like to be done in 30 days. And we try very hard not to laugh because it's not funny, but you just want to say, well, that's going to be, you're going to have a lot less options if you need to be done in 30 days. So we really are trying to do things in advance.
And I think to mirror what Hilary said, what we've seen is an increase in those types of calls, which is down the road. It might be 5-10 years. They might not have a date in mind, and most of them don't yet, but at least they're thinking about it. And we've seen an increase over the last 5 years, especially where people are at least thinking about it and having true planning discussions. As opposed to those, hey, I need to get out because of, again, health and wellness being right now the main driver that we've witnessed. And so we feel as those calls increase and consulting opportunities increase on the planning for the future, I think it's positive. So I do think while it might be considered a problem today, I think we're getting out there more, and as Hilary said, more proactive in the industry, and advisors are starting to think about it more. And to your question earlier, Patrice, it doesn't impact just the advisor. Planning for succession impacts their staff, impacts their clients, impacts their beneficiaries. And so there's a lot of reasons to really think about it and put a good plan in place, because you've got more, a business owner, financial advisor has more than just themselves to think about. And I do see it turning where more and more are thinking about it, which is positive.
And I completely agree with that. Patrice, I mean, you have 3 firms here represented that I think are all 3 making a concerted effort to help with this area. So at Advisor Group, we have really an end-to-end process that we go through, or a platform. We start with education. We have very particular criteria, or curriculum rather, that we help both people who want to buy these businesses and folks who are nearing retirement. We have a matching website called mysuccessionplan.com, which is part of our technology solution to be able to match those folks both internally and externally. We help advisors, financial professionals with valuations and analytics to not only understand what the value of their business is now, but how to actually grow that through prescriptive analytics. And then we help with deal structuring, we help with due diligence, we help with the negotiation, we actually document the deals. We come in with capital at the firm level to help buyers who, don't necessarily have hundreds of thousands of dollars burning a hole in their pocket to be able to buy a business. And then we help with the transition of those clients, both from the back office perspective and also the client facing perspective. And then at the end of all of that, we have another program that helps buyers who have gone through all of those steps in the end-to-end process really create something that's the best return on their investment. And what we really recognize that all of this, as Rob and Hilary have both alluded to, it's not just for the financial professionals, it is for the end client. I mean, as long as they have that in mind, then these things work out pretty well.
And Todd, that is the perfect segue. You were reading my mind here into the question of mergers and acquisitions. That's growing. Is it being fueled by COVID? Is it being fueled by succession planning? What are we seeing here?
Yeah, I think that it's being fueled by some of the accelerants that I mentioned before. We all know that the age demographics of the industry. I would say, the major accelerants that we see mainly revolve around regulations and technology. And financial professionals are just getting to the point that it's not fun for them anymore. And that's what I hear on a regular basis. It's just, I don't enjoy what I'm doing when I have to go through all of the regulatory hoops that I have to jump through. And we all know that they're necessary, but when you've been in the business for 30, 40 years, it's a completely different world in which we live right now. And things are a lot different. And people are beginning to recognize that. And that's one of the reasons why we are seeing across the board, record M&A. We see it on a regular basis. I think in 2020, we saw about 150 succession plans that we did internally. 2021, we did 162. And for the first 2 quarters of 2021, we did 162. For the first 2 quarters of 2022, we've already done 119. So those statistics continue to grow. I don't see them going away. In fact, I see them continuing to grow well into the future. And I think it's something that, again, you've got some great folks like Rob and Hilary on the phone right now that are helping solve this problem.
And I would echo what Todd said, and we're really seeing and hearing the same things. It's very much fueled by the regulation and the technology. I mean, you just need the economies of scale to be able to get those things done. And as Todd said, I mean, it quite often comes down to, I no longer enjoy doing this because I'm so mired in the compliance and the regulation. And so we're really seeing and hearing the same things that he has mentioned.
We're also, and I agree with both of Todd and Hilary, we're also seeing health and wellness play a role as well because of, we talked to a number of advisors who previously would have said, I'm not going to leave the industry. I'll die at my desk, quote unquote. And we're seeing then, the sickness come in, whether them or their spouse or their family, and that's driving them as well to leave the industry. And so we're just going to see that continue. And as with the aging demographics that we have in the industry. And on the flip side, from an acquisition standpoint, it's a great growth strategy, instead of sort of hunting and pecking for one client at a time to go out and purchase, say, 300. It's an absolutely great growth strategy. Historically, the challenge has been in sourcing potential sellers. And that's because the supply hasn't really been there. But we're starting to see that turn around. I don't think we'll ever see a true silver tsunami, as we've called it in the industry, with the number of retirements. But we're going to see more and more supply come on board. And that means it's incumbent on the firms to prepare the next generation that they're going to be able to acquire these practices and be successful in the acquisition. And because the numbers has, over the last, as I mentioned, 5 or 10 years has been down with new advisors coming into the industry, I think we all have to work that much harder to be able to bring them up to speed, make sure they're ready to acquire, and be supportive and support them, like Todd mentioned, with financing opportunities and so forth. But it's I think it's going to be one of our challenges over the next 5-10 years, not just in advisors retiring, but also in the acquisition process and preparing advisors to acquire.
And how do the three of you see this changing the landscape in the industry? Are we going to see fewer one-person shops?
Yes, I think our vision is that we're going to see more teams, bigger teams, less financial advisors in the industry overall, but more specific support roles on those teams where it's more specialized. I think that's the future of our industry, at least as best as I can tell at this point, for sure.
Hilary?
Yeah, I really we're seeing a little bit of both. I do think there will be fewer advisors simply because there are just fewer people, coming into the industry. So I do think a lot of that will consolidate. We also are seeing a lot of team approach and specialization and again, kind of that economies of scale. But we also do see, the individual advisor who then wants to essentially sell or succession plan with another individual advisor. So we're really seeing both of that. And our resources reflect that. So we're helping whether it's one person, transition to one person or whether it's, coming together. We have all of the resources and support to help either way.
Todd, any thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with both Rob and Hilary. I do think that we'll continue to see a consolidation in the industry. And to Hilary's point, it'll come in a number of different flavors. We help people who are, small mom and pop shops, silo advisors, all the way up through the very large enterprises. And the solutions for, when you go across that spectrum can vary widely. So being able to have resources to be able to help with both sides of that spectrum and anything in the middle is really important. And Patrice, you touched on something a little bit earlier with a question. I don't think that I fully answered it. You talked about the pandemic and whether or not that was fueling the M&A rise that we've seen. I think partially it was, but I think what we saw more than fueling the M&A was more of a concern for continuity planning. So not necessarily buying or selling a business right now, but it was definitely a reality check for a lot of our financial professionals, and I'm sure Hilary and Rob's financial professionals as well, that they're not immortal. And to put something in place for the unexpected or unforeseen death, disability of either themselves or a loved one, where we've seen people had to exit the business because they had to become a primary caretaker of a loved one. The number of continuity agreements that we did in the past few years has more than tripled. So I think that's an important piece of this that a lot of people don't talk about, is having that safety net in place and making sure, even if you do theoretically say you want to die at your desk, I think that it's really a duty of financial professionals to have something in place to take care of their clients, their staff, and their family in the event that Monday morning they don't show up.
Reality sets in, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. Let's move on to some other trends and opportunities that you see in the industry. Who would like to start here?
I'm happy to start, Patrice. Trends, I think we've talked about a lot of the trends here, just, transitioning out and advisors willing to consider, what their retirement looks like and what that succession plan looks like. I think there is a lot of opportunity if you are on the buy side of it, for the first time in years, there are a lot of opportunities to buy practices. And we have a number of advisors, who love having that opportunity within our system. You can, grow your business in ways that are far faster than adding one client at a time. So we do see a lot of opportunity there.
Rob, see any trends? Any additional opportunities?
I would tell you, I think from an opportunity perspective, I think there's an opportunity out there. One of the things that I don't think the industry has done well at all is preparing advisors for their next stage of their life. So for retirement specifically. And I think a lot of the firms and those on this call included have done really well in putting teams together to help support whether it's the acquisition or the sale of practices. But from a mental health, from a psychological preparation, I think there's opportunity for the industry really to help advisors out, get used to, the next stage. What are they going to do when they wake up Monday morning of the first week? They're no longer a financial advisor, and continue to let them know that they're going to be great, they're going to do well. It's encouraging them and preparing them for the next stage. And I think, again, I think the industry hasn't done well in that respect, and I think there's lots of opportunity to do that. So I do think more firms will put resources in place to help advisors. On the trend side, I think acquisitions are, going to continue to be popular for those that are prepared to acquire. And I think it's going to really come down more and more to those advisors who have really good processes in place because of the regulation, the increase in regulations, and as opposed to, I'm just a good guy, so why don't you sell to me? I think it's going to be really looking at practices. If I'm the seller, looking at the practice to see how prepared they are to really service my clients in the best way possible. So I think from a trend perspective, we're going to see firms and advisors get more process driven in order to be able to acquire practices as they move forward.
I totally agree with Rob. We're seeing the same thing in that those who have very tight, very specific, well planned out processes really are in a much better position to be able to buy and absorb the business. One additional trend that we are seeing is a sell and stay. And that is something that we really weren't talking about even 2 or 3 years ago. And we seem to be talking a lot more about that now, in having a model where the advisor sells the practice and then yet stays in some capacity, which helps those who kind of have that mindset of, I want to die at my desk. But again, everything being about, client and taking care of the clients and the advisor's family, that really is a model and a format that kind of helps everybody, because those clients will be taken care of, but the advisor can stay in the business for as long as they want.
I'm hearing that more and more in my conversations with advisors. Yes, they don't want to just end it completely. They want to have a hand in it. They want to keep going a little bit here and a little bit there. It seems like the best of both worlds. But now we're running up against the clock here. So let's end on almost a positive note. Each of you, would you give me one or two of the main concerns you have about the industry going forward?
Well, I'll jump in. This is Todd. I would say we've already talked about this a little bit. It's, we have fewer financial professionals coming in. We have more who are going out. We know that buying a business is the fastest way to grow your business. It's also the hardest way. I do think that firms like the ones we have on the phone here today are developing resources around this. And I think more and more firms will. I think that a lot of people talk about this, but few execute on it. A lot of people just kind of regurgitate what they hear with no original thoughts or solutions. It's kind of like reading words on a bumper sticker. But I think that, Patrice, you've put together a great panel of really good panelists, great firms, and we're all friendly competitors, but we're all trying to do something in the industry that's trying to help. And quite frankly, that's something that I'm very proud of.
Hilary, Rob?
Yeah, Todd, I think, Todd nailed it. We all are out there working together, to try to come up with solutions. I think, one of the concerns is, again, the fewer people coming into the industry, but also their mindset and the way they want to build a business is very, very different from those who are selling the business, how they built their business. So there's a lot of education, not just on how to be an advisor, but a lot of, just that communication difference, and where work-life balance is so much more important now. A lot of the people who built those businesses, still did it back on, yellow pages and picking up the phone and dialing for clients. And so just the mindset and the, blood, sweat, and tears they put into building their businesses. Now somebody's going to walk in and buy it as an existing business and then run it. You have to get over some of that mindset as well. They just don't understand, or they didn't work as hard. So I think we need to really be focused on some of that training and education and awareness as well.
Rob, you want the last word?
Sure, happy to. I think it comes down to planning, which is the main purpose of what we're talking about here, and really planning for all facets of of succession, which includes planning for, the catastrophic. And while we don't like to think about it, having a plan in place, again, to protect those around us, including staff, clients, and family, and then planning for the ideal exit, and planning well in advance, because you may have some false starts along the way. So if you're doing an internal succession and you bring on a junior partner onto the team, but they don't work out, you're going to have to start over. And so you're going to, in some cases, need 10 to 15 years in order to really play it out. And so being prepared that well in advance, I think, is going to be really important. And just planning for the next stage as well. So for the retiring advisor, what am I going to do? How am I going to accept being retired, and knowing that that's going to be okay? And then if I'm the next gen, planning for when I do get my name in lights, when I do take over, am I prepared? Is my practice prepared to take on that many more clients? And am I positioned well? And so I think it's all about planning, and planning well in advance.
Well, Todd and Hilary, Rob, great discussion, great thoughts. I thank you so much for giving us your time on this panel. And thank you for listening to this Wealthy Circle podcast. For more Wealthy Circle podcasts, visit WMTV on wealthmanagement.com.